Hello, how are you doing? Thanks for the intro, Steve. So, my title today is it's a fair cop and no mistake, and so I'm talking about that time as we went up to cessation of production. I don't think I'm going to tell you anything particularly groundbreaking today. We're all going to die at some point. I'm not here to tell you a kind of funeral plan for that, but I'm going to pose the question, how well are we planning for the inevitable? How well are we thinking about our end-of-life activities, our decommissioning activities? Are we doing hard or are we doing soft decommissioning instead of Brexit? Are we thinking about our maintenance strategies? How well are we tailoring those for equipment that's either soon to be redundant or is no longer required? And why is this really important to us as integrity people? It's also going to come to us all. So, some of us later than others. The reason I think that this is important, that according to an Oil and Gas UK report, the decom spend for the UK continental shelf is going to be around £17 billion between 2017 and 2025. Now, obviously, a huge chunk of that is allocated towards abandoning wells. I think it's about 49%. So on some of these forecasts have kind of been dropping over time as our rig rates have dropped with lower oil price. But there's still an important part of this, which is topsides preparation. It's making ourselves hydrocarbon free in order to decommission. Even though it's only a tiny 6% of this, so we're talking around £1 billion. And then after that, there'll be removal of topsides and substructures, taking around 15% of that total. Now, as you can see, this is just some data from the central North Sea. And we've probably got some people in. I know I saw Carmen earlier from Marathon with the big red dot, very exciting up there. There's a lot of subsea structures, it's probably really why that comes in. We've got Claymore there for our guys from Repsol and also Scott area. So you're all there, and it's coming soon. What I really want to say is, like, during our operational phase, we're very much focused on the operational phase, and we really want our assets to perform over a whole life cycle. And during operations, this is really just safe, predictable production. But we need to think a little bit further ahead than this. And I think the reason for this is a lot of the companies, the operators there, are starting to talk about their decommissioning liabilities. For some business units, coming in under budget on their decommissioning liabilities is how they'll look profitable to the rest of their organisation. And if we can help them to do that, I think that's going to be a good thing. So just to kind of move on to our early life integrity. In some ways, this is nice and easy. I know Kevin's still here enjoying a bit of early life integrity with Cygnus. But our RBIs are typically driven by theory. We're going to do time-based maintenance. And any failures that we do have are either down to inadequate design or manufacturing defects. This here is an example from an FPSO. It's a duplex stainless steel in produced water, lots of chlorides, 80 degrees, some very dodgy hydrotest procedures going on, and a complete disregard for the material selection reports, which had recommended carbon steel or super duplex. And in a situation like this, early life, we're probably going to replace. That's where we're going to be with it. I don't know how long we need it for. Midlife. Again, now we start to know a little bit more about our assets. We're moving our RBIs, we're starting to observe, have observed conditions. We know our operating regimes a little bit more, and our maintenance moves to be a bit more condition-based. And our typical failures that we start to see are more kind of to do with either process creep. And another example here, different produced water system in a midlife asset. So here we started to see external corrosion on carbon steel, and we've got internal degradation. We can wrap this, happy days. But we still have internal degradation going on, and because of that poor external surface condition, we don't really have a grasp on what that looks like. So again, there's like decisions will be made there, which is probably easier to justify midlife to replace a spool than it would be as you're moving in closer to your end of life. As we get close to end of life, I'm sure a lot of our ops managers think we need to do this. Just nothing. We're almost there. It's almost over. But in actual fact, from an integrity point of view, this is probably the huge amount of work we need to do. So we've got our RBIs are quite driven now by not only just the observed condition, we might be having to do fitness for service assessments and trying to run that into cessation of production dates. Our maintenance is probably going to be preventative. You know, what do we have to do? And we may have significant numbers of inspection anomalies and repairs that we need monitoring to avoid premature failures, and loss of containment. So what do I think some of our late life challenges are that we could be thinking about as integrity engineers? We have our first old chestnut, cessation of production dates. We all know they keep moving around. And it's very, very difficult to plan your integrity management systems when you have that changing end date. And why is that? We talk about economic recovery and the oil price, but the oil price is not the only thing that affects this. You've got your overall field economics. You can have third-party tiebacks or interlinked fields that are relying on your infrastructure. And then you may not even get regulatory approval to decommission your infrastructure because other fields are feeding into it. Our other classics here, we've got our process creep, which I kind of started to speak about there. So our increased water cuts kind of maybe has an effect on our corrosion rates. We're going to think about that. We're also going to see things like maybe we start to see gas deficiencies, and gas deficiency might lead to recycling gases and fatigue issues. And actually we probably, even with an aging life extension, need to consider how our fatigue lives are going to be beyond our design lives. And then with that gas deficiency, we then also might think we need to change over to diesel for our turbines. That's where our power generation is coming from. Now that power generation, that is not just that to the end of production. We're going to need that power generation right the way through that decommissioning phase or making safe phase before we start to take anything away. Another problem which I kind of alluded to there, the repair or replace challenge. You know, are we monitoring defined life repairs, or are we doing something about them? And I'll leave Ed to talk a little bit more about painting, but I've already alluded to this as well. So our surface condition, how we're able to understand our internal degradation, if we don't do our fabric maintenance, these are issues that start to catch up with us. Then moving into our actual decommissioning, the making safe requirements. You know, what level of mothball pipework do we have? What's been air gapped? What's redundant? Have we done MOCs for destruct? And actually for things like plugging and abandoning wells, there could be pipework there that for a shut-in well that you haven't plugged and abandoned that you require, but you've been RBIing that as if it's no longer required. You haven't thought about it. And there's no way that people want to spend a huge amount of money upgrading the integral rigs in order to do something that you should have been looking after. Also for our structures, and I think as David mentioned earlier, you can remove these piece by piece, single lists for the very, very small assets, but we need to consider what actually are our structural requirements for doing decommissioning, and how well are we going to do that, and how well are we going to plan that into our end-of-life inspections. Also, our actual decommissioning is not done by magic fairies, no. People have to go there. We've all seen the handrail pictures, gratings. People need access and egress to your asset in order to do decommissioning. And this is not necessarily over a short period of time. We could be talking years for some assets as they go through their decommissioning phase. And then finally, let's not forget about the 45,000 kilometres of North Sea pipelines. Around 17% of those need to be decommissioned by 2025. They need to be made safe, and we'll do that with pigging runs. So our pigging traps is another thing which often we forget that we need to maintain them as well, and how well we're going to manage our inspection of those. And again, with them falling between a pipeline and topside, they can sometimes get missed out. So I think what I'm really saying is that we all probably need to plan ahead to make sure that our late life and decommissioning strategies really work, and that we can give thought to helping it become more economic in the later phase. That's it. The end.
Okay.